Good.
All right. Well, welcome to our Be the Change NMD and Advocacy hangout tonight, sponsored by NMD United. There's 9 of us here. I'm Emily Walensky. I'm from Austin, Texas. I say we go in order of first name alphabetical order. Anne.
I guess that's me. I am Anne. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I started a full-time job this fall because I finally graduated from school. And my life is fun now.
Cool. And we got B, Brooklyn.
Hello. I'm Brooklyn. I'm from Guelph, which is kind of near Toronto in Canada. I am 21 and I'm just in the midst of exams. So please excuse my tired demeanor.
All right, next up. Heather.
Is it me?
Yeah, dude.
I was just looking around at everyone's names. I'm Heather, and I'm in Austin, Texas, and I'm in law school at UT. And I'm going through exams right now. So if I appear crazy, it's because I am crazy.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Awesome. I bet you are. Okay, and then L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, V. All right, so J, K, L. All right, Joey.
Yeah.
You are.
I'm from Shawnee, Kansas. I'm going through finals week and it sucks.
I really appreciate you coming. It's hard to do that. What are you studying in college?
Graphic design.
Cool.
So instead of tests, we have projects due, which really sucks.
Right. I hear you. Hey, Laura.
Alrighty, I'm Laura. I live in Fairfax, Virginia. Recently from Dallas, Texas before that. I work with various nonprofits for people with disabilities. I was just at the Abilities Expo this weekend and helped put on a power soccer clinic. So I'm kind of low energy right now, but happy to be here.
Great. And we got Rachel.
Hello, it's Rachel Markley. I'm from League City, Texas. I also just started working full-time, I guess it was November 1st. I'm going to say what I do because I think it pertains greatly to the Hangout. So I work sort of for 2 institutions. I work for TIER, which is the Institute for Rehabilitation and Research, which is the rehab hospital here in Houston, the main one. And I work in their research division, and for them I do spinal cord injury and disability research. But then I also work for Baylor College of Medicine, and I work at the Center for Research on Women with Disabilities. So it's health and psychosocial research and health education for women of all disabilities. So.
Very cool. Thank you. Glad you're here. And all right, Tabby, you get to go first because Thomas TK is after you.
Hi, I'm Tabby. I live in New York City. I have been living here the last 14 years, but I want to say that I was born and raised in Texas, and so many of us here are from Texas. So I'm born and raised in Houston. Right now I live here, and I'm 31 years old. I work full-time in IT, and on the side I do music. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I also do a lot of volunteering with MDA and other organizations related to people with disabilities like UCP and Learning Ally and things like that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, I'm not in school. I haven't been in school, and I work full time, but I keep pretty busy staying on top of healthcare advocacy here in New York State. I work for the largest and actually the founder of the whole consumer-directed model here in New York City. It's a company called Concepts of Independence. And with all of the changes in healthcare in New York State over the last 5 years, there's been just a rapid fire evolution and growth in our program. And unfortunately, my boss is a complete idiot and doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Are you sure that, this is going to be recorded, right?
Yeah, whatever. At this point, I don't give a shit.
So I blame your boss with all the changes and concepts I get in the mail.
Let me know. No, let me know. And, all I can do is, let you know what's going on. So I think you're going to have your concepts.
We have a call-in. Who's calling in?
I think that's probably me. This is Peg Nosek from Houston, Texas.
Hi, Peg. You made it.
Hi, I made it, yeah. Thanks for giving me the call-in number, Rachel. I work with Rachel at Baylor College of Medicine and TIR doing women's health research.
Excellent. So glad you're here with us. We've heard a lot about you, kind of.
Uh-oh.
all good things, but are you in Living with MD?
Yeah, for a really long time. I'm probably the oldest one on the call. I'm almost 64 years old.
Wow. Well, cool.
Amazing. Yeah, I have spinal muscular atrophy. I don't even know what type it is, but I was diagnosed at age 2.
Excellent. Well, Brooklyn, do you want to change Peg's name instead of call-in user? Do you want to change it to rename her to Peg?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
As opposed to what?
Right now, you're
opposed to what?
user 1.
Oh.
We're going to change you, though. Don't worry. And then,
Okay.
Oh, cool. Eric's here.
Emily, how do I do that?
All right. Click on her square, and it'll say, I think, rename. Or if you go under the menu, it'll say participants.
I found it. We're good.
And you can rename her in the participants. Hey, Eric.
Hello.
Do you want to introduce yourself? We were just saying who we are and where we're from and what we do, kind of thing.
Well, I'm Eric, and I'm from just moved to Sacramento, California, and still working on what I want to do next.
Well, thanks for joining us. So I guess, do you guys want to start with the first question, and then we'll kind of go around and do a round robin? Who wants to ask? Heather or Brooklyn? Okay, Heather's muted, so I'm guessing there's a reason. Brooklyn, do you want me to ask, or?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I was trying to find it.
All right, well, I'll start with the question. Basically, on a scale of like 1 to 10, 10 being like super advocate, like, you would consider yourself like in like you've got a lot of tools for advocacy, and 1 being like you really barely even know what like ableism is. You don't really have a good idea of disability history or anything like that. Like, where would you put yourself on the scale, and kind of like why would you put yourself there? So I just wanted to we're just going to go around and kind of just and you'll just tell your answer, and then kind of just to get a feel for like everybody in the group. So why don't we start with Anne? I like the alphabetical order.
Okay, I'd probably say 5. I like know the concepts and everything, ableism and things, but I don't know. I need to work on advocacy skills more in my personal life. So,
can you give an example of an advocacy skill that you feel like you want to improve on?
Just like being more open about my disability. Like, I don't know. Like, I think sometimes I have like a poor view of it, which is like internalized ableism. But I mean, like with the Kylie Jenner thing, like I really wanted to like post all over Facebook about it, but then I'm like, oh, I don't want like people to only think that about me. But I'm like, that's stupid because it's an important part of who I am. So I just
Cool.
yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing. Brooklyn, you want to talk about your scale?
I would say I'm probably around a happy little 5. I feel like I share certain things and I'm like articles and stuff on my Facebook for my friends and stuff to see, but I'm also don't share an abundance of it. I kind of want them the small or whatever I do share to focus on rather than having them overwhelmed with things because I feel like they may not like read all of them then, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Is there anything that you would like to take away from this conversation?
I just want to learn more about strategies to get messages across kind of thing. Because I feel like, Facebook is obviously a good way, so is social media, any social media. But if there's any other way to kind of get the point across in a clearer but not aggressive way, would be nice.
Okay.
We have to teach Brooklyn how to be aggressive. They don't learn that in Canada.
Very true. Very, very true.
We were talking about Canada.
I take sorry way too much.
Let's see. I would say I am moving into, I would say I'm at a 7. I would say for many, many years, I was probably like a 2 or a 3. And then since joining with Living with MD and learning from all of you guys, that scale has steadily risen over the years. And it's very apparent through my Facebook posts. I love those like history posts, where they tell you like this many, this is what you posted on this day over the last 5 years. And like, it's kind of weird to see my history change. I feel like I have really overcome a lot of internalized ableism. I feel I still have work to do, which is why I wouldn't ever consider myself.
You're no longer a self-hating cripple.
Yeah. I definitely, it's just interesting, like little weird shit, like wearing a seatbelt, like that kind of stuff. Just stuff that like I used to be, very, very uncomfortable in my power chair because I thought it made me look too disabled. It's just very interesting to see how I've evolved. And I feel like it's really, my writing has, like I've become a much bigger writer and speaker. And I'm reading my very first disability history book right now, which is like changing my world.
What are you reading?
Huh?
What are you reading?
The Too Late to Die Young by Harriet.
The book that I referred you to.
Yes, you did. But I wasn't listening when you referred it. Now I'm actually listening. So anyway, I'm starting to get better. And I like I said, if I were going to take anything, it would just be, I guess, kind of like what Brooklyn and Anne kind of said, is I don't necessarily want to be like throw myself out of the wheelchair, chain myself to a tree kind of protester. I kind of want more strategies on how to do it, kind of grassroots, but like kind of like non-aggressive, if that makes sense. So, okay, Eric.
To Canada, Emily.
Yeah, maybe I should. I should just go to Canada, and that would just knock me down a notch. So
then you can be out and about.
I also need to kind of come up with some strategies on how to save personal relationships with people that I don't feel are like I argue a lot with people on Living with MD about ableism, and I get really heated and I get really, really angry. and I don't know if that's the best way to help the situation. And so I want a better strategy for dealing with that. So I was going to kind of leave that there. Sorry, I'm rambling. Eric, do you want to talk about your skill and what you want to learn? I think you're muted, so okay, there you go.
Maybe I'm somewhere, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe. Not sure what I want to learn. Can't really think of something right now.
Okay, well, you're here, so that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And so what's next in alphabetical order land?
It's me.
No. Wait.
Yeah, it's Heather.
Yeah. Oh, Heather, sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm probably a little bit radical as far as being an activist. I can be a little bit ridiculous about my opinions because I don't think that people with disabilities are treated fairly in our society, and I will say that till the day I die. I do not think that we are treated fairly, rationally, equally, and et cetera in our society. And I think that one thing that our community in Living with MD seems to be lacking right now is a shared idea of what we're fighting for. We need like a bonded force or something like that. Like, what exactly is it that we are united about, and what is it that we are struggling for and advocating for, and what do we want everybody to be hearing? I came here to discuss that. I want to know, like, I want to know what everybody wants to be fighting for, and I want to know in what way it's best to be doing that without getting too in people's faces, but at the same time making it very clear, making our language very intentional about what we need in our society right now. So I am a radical activist, but I just want change. I just want equality, and we don't have that right now. And honestly, if you think we do, then I want to discuss that too, because I don't get it. I don't understand it, and I'll be straight up and honest about that.
So what's your number, girl? What's your idea?
Oh, 10. I'm a radical activist. Like I can't get enough of it, and I can't handle people being treated unfairly in any means, not just disability, but like at all, period.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Joey.
So I'd say probably a 7. I mean, I do, post a lot of stuff, and I want to be more involved, but right now it's just not possible. I mean, I don't know. Kansas doesn't seem like there's too many opportunities to get involved. It just doesn't seem like the movement here is very organized, and I don't know.
Okay. All right, but it's good that you, like I said, if you're here, you're here. That's great. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, all right, Laura.
Alrighty. I'd say I'm a 7 going on an 8. In 2014, I grew a lot as an advocate. When Angela Wigglesworth she kind of forced me to be a candidate for Miss Wheelchair Texas, and I ended up winning. And during that, I spoke a lot to legislators, businesses, and media and other people about issues that are important to people with disabilities. And I even taught a class at my local independent living center on how to be your own advocate, and just meeting and networking with other organizations like the Coalition for Texans with Disabilities, ADAPT, and the National Council on Independent Living. That, really got me fired up. And of course, I grew even more through Living with MD, and then getting us, helping get started on the Dear Juliana project. And now I live near DC, and so I'm kind of right in the middle of all of it. And it was really great to be here during the 25th anniversary of the ADA and meeting so many people. And just big issues for me right now are getting Congress to pass HR 3229 and Senate Bill 2196, which have to do with complex rehab technology and getting it out of that competitive bidding category. And I posted a link on the invite for more information about that. And then also the Disability Integration Act, which will make it a civil right for people with disabilities to live in the community and not in nursing homes if they wish. And I think the things I want to learn is how to actually make more concrete change. But of course, I think the biggest issue is, as society, we have to overturn Citizens United to get money out of politics. Because otherwise, not a lot is going to change. And then I also want to learn how to get more able-bodied people interested in issues that are important to us. Because, we're the one minority that any of them can join at any time. So yeah, that's what I'm all about. Oh, I can't hear you. Crap.
Emily, you're muted.
I said it's true that we're very lucky in that sense because, like you said, anyone can be us. And it's like people, it's kind of an interesting angle and it can wake people up, I think. And so I think that's a really good point. Craig, do you want to talk about your scale from 1 to 10?
Peg? Oh, there. I'm unmuted. Okay. Hi. Yeah, I'd say I'm maybe an 8. I've had a lot of experience. My mentor was Justin Dark, and I worked on the passage of the ADA, actually the drafting of it and passage of it way back when. But I've got a lot to learn. I've found over the years that the tactics that have been used more successfully, tactics used by the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King and the women's rights movement, like the women in Seneca Falls. And so I've studied them, and I find that it's a judicious balance of really hardcore activism and working both within and outside of the system. It's a very interesting game that you have to play to get those strategies right in order to move things forward. And so I'm still learning and practicing.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I talked to a friend of mine, I don't know if you know her, but her name is Sarah Kendall. She works for the state, but we had a long talk about advocacy, and she said, are you one of the people that, will join in at the end of a huge fight that's been going on for years and years and like jump on board and fight at the very end after all the work's been done? Or are you the person that gets it started from the top, from the beginning? And we talked about a lot about like infiltration advocacy, where you go into the state cog and you actually work in like policy and you deal with all that boring shit and you go in and you kind of like work it through that end versus like outside. And so it was interesting.
I like that. Infiltration advocacy. Oh, I like that.
Well, and it was weird because I was considering applying for a job in the Medicaid department because of that reason, but oh God, working for them, it's just such a misery. And I don't know, it's really hard, but I'm kind of an infiltrator. I prefer the infiltration stuff. I'm not.
It's hard. You got to swallow an awful lot to do that. We need people on the inside and the outside. So I think maybe our better bet is to find people who are already on the inside and convince them and get them to act as our advocates from the inside. You know, we were marching at Lafayette Square during one of the demonstrations around ADA, and one of the people carrying a candle was one of the civil rights attorneys at the Department of Justice. You know, he was right there with us, carrying a candle, and yeah, that was so amazing. And all through the years, he's been sort of like our secret insider. He gives us insights. He lets us know what's cooking and, you know, what we want to be wearing coming down the pike. And so he was already there, but he saw the truth of our ways, you know. So he's been really valuable.
Right on. Well, thank you. Who's next? Rachel? Is it Rachel? It's Rachel, right?
I think so.
I know my alphabetical order, I swear. All right, so anyway, where are you on the scale?
I'm gonna go with the magic number 5 and working to move upwards every day. But I will say I was probably significantly lower before living with MD, primarily just because I was really not around a lot of people with disabilities. I didn't know that many, and when I did, they weren't people that I necessarily cared to be around, I guess. And so since I've been in that, and it's kind of, you know, in my face every day, because I check Facebook every day and I follow it, and it's been so amazingly helpful for me. It's really increased just my interest, and I just want to learn more.
Well, thank you for being here. And I guess we'll go Tabby next. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Oh, sorry.
I think I'm at a 6 or a 7. It's hard for me to decide because it kind of depends on what you think of advocacy as well. Like I feel like I do a lot with, you know, considering the time I have. You know, I started a disability resource group at my company. I'm always working, you know, to try and get employees to even think of things outside of the company and opening people's eyes for people with disabilities working in the workplace and corporations. I volunteer, as I said earlier, regularly with various organizations on a regular basis. But those, you know, and things that I do like that, like most of my music is to inspire other people with disabilities and to also show people who are not really affected by a disability, you know, how our issues are very similar and relatable through my music. You know, like they can like my songs that are really meant for people struggling with a disability, but then they can relate to it with their own obstacles. So in that sense, I feel like I advocate, but what I want to work on is really making a change, like Heather and all of you guys were talking about, like legalities, and I don't know much about that, so I would love to get more involved in that. I know there are people who like literally go to, you know, who go to City Hall, you know, and try to hold up signs and to make change. And I know that I would like to do stuff like that if I had, I guess, someone to go with. I don't really know like how that all works, so that's what I'm kind of looking for, to see what changes I can help with. And I do have a lot of presence online, I feel, at least with the time I have, but that could also be expanded.
Excellent. Thank you. That's great. And TK, last but not least.
Okay, well, I'm going to say that for certain things, I'm like a 20 on a scale of 1 to 10. And then there's other things where I'm more like a 2 or a 3 or a 1. I would say that there's lots of different advocacy that goes on in different ways. And what I think is so interesting about this particular conversation today is that the 11 people that shared probably hit on all of the different types of advocacy. And I was up in Albany at the state capitol here in New York, and Bob Kafka from ADAPT came in, and we had like a sort of an advocacy workshop where we taught New York State disability rights people about all the different advocacy tools and so forth. So for some people and for some situations, really getting mad and in somebody's face is really helpful. I mean, there is a place for training yourself to the door, and there is a place for politely rolling into a meeting with a policy idea and talking about things. There is a place for standing on the corner or sitting on the corner getting signatures. So it's like a pitchfork, you know? You got 4 or 5 times on the fork, and those all comprise different parts of advocacy. So, you know, legally, when I had my own practice, I used to win pretty much all my cases. I did primarily home care cases, getting people the community-based services that they needed. And government officials are just the dumbest people in the world. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. They don't know what hit them. And if you do any kind of work, you're guaranteed to win your case. Because the fights, the cause that we're fighting for, it's such a, you know, apple pie issue about living in the community, working or going to school, just doing the things that everybody else takes for granted. And once you learn those rules, it's pretty easy to make an argument that we need the services, especially here in New York State and New York City, where, you know, authorizations are plentiful. You know, I live in my own apartment with 2 12-hour shifts. You know, basically, I'm stuck here because I wouldn't get that type of care anywhere else in the country. So I've been privileged to know many of the leaders of the disability rights movement, the founders, if you will. I mean, I had Ed Roberts' home phone number, and I met Justin Durrett. I've met Judy Hillman many times. I mean, and when I did my radio show here in New York City called The Largest Minority, I interviewed Harriet Johnson, the author of the book that Emily is reading right now. We had people like Laura Hershey, who wrote that great poem, You Get Proud by Practicing, which is really a great thing. So my evolution, just in terms of accepting my disability, when I was in law school, I was the only guy in a wheelchair. And so, you know, that was it. I had nobody really to interact with. I mean, I kept in touch with Mike Volkman, who was my roommate in college, but that was really the extent of my connection to the disability community for years, you know. And then I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. When I graduated from school in '93, the job market was just awful. I mean, people just weren't getting jobs, whether they were disabled or not. And when it was right after the ADA, 1993, and, you know, the ADA was new, and employers were like, oh no, what do we do? We don't know what to ask, you know. And I would go on job interviews and roll into the meeting, and you could just see the oh shit look on their face. They were like, oh my God, you're really disabled. And it's like, you know, and it's like, I knew I wasn't going to get the job. Never got callbacks, nothing. And then I took a job at the Brooklyn Center for Independence and the Disabled, the Independent Living Center here in Brooklyn. And that was really the beginning of my career. And you know, it was right before I got that job, though. If I saw one of my friends on the street from law school, I would turn around and go the other way just to avoid them, because had been unemployed and I was so pissed broke, and it was awful. You know, I couldn't pay my student loans. It was terrible. And then something just clicked, and I just said, I am not going to apologize for who I am or what I am. This is me. And the world has to accept me on my terms, not me accept the world on their terms. And once I did that, it was like taking a big shit. You know, life got pretty easy, you know. And so this group, Living with MD, I mean, I had a career, I was doing okay. Wasn't great, but I was doing all right. But then when I started meeting the people in Living with MD, I was like, I have to push myself that much higher because I've been all these smart people and I'm like, well, I'm smart like them. Maybe I'm not living up to my potential. So I would say that this group has sort of forced me to up my game, and on a scale of 1 to 10, in that sense, I'm very pleased to be involved with NMD, and it's been a privilege meeting and knowing and working with so many people in this room.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
We've
I stay small, and I stand by this message.
Well, we've had 2 people join us. We're kind of just going around the room and we're talking, basically introducing ourselves and saying on a scale of like 1 to 10, 10 being like a super advocate and 1 being like a not really knowing much about much. Where are you on that scale, and what do you want to take away from this conversation? And so I see that you're here, Terry. Nice to see you, and nice to see you, Alana. Terry, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, my name is Terry Willoughby. I have SMA type 3, and I guess I'm probably somewhere in the middle of your range.
Okay. And what's one thing you'd want to take away from this conversation tonight?
Just kind of see what everybody else is doing and learn what there is to do.
Great, thank you. And Alana, I'm glad you're here tonight. You want to say hi?
Hello. Hi, I'm here. I'm Alana Terrio, and I am a professional advocate. On the scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably put myself at about an 8 on a lot of areas, a lot of different advocacy areas, with probably a 9 on public benefits. That's my baby, and I know about employment and benefits.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming. And what would you want to take away from this conversation tonight?
I would like to know who the other advocates here are, and I want to know what people feel are the hot issues, and to share resources.
Great, thank you. Well, it's interesting that we're all talking about it, and I think one theme that I just picked up on in the conversation so far is kind of a need to determine what kind of advocate you want to be, and the kind of acceptance that just there are every kind of advocacy is important. There's no right way to be an advocate, if that makes any sense. Like, if you don't throw yourselves under the stairs of a building that's not accessible, that doesn't make you a bad advocate. It just makes you a different advocate. And so, like, for me, I've had to kind of define my own type of advocacy in a way. Like, I want to use my writing skills to advocate, and I want to also, NMD United was one of the things I helped set up because I wanted a nonprofit and I wanted to focus on people with neuromuscular disabilities. I'm not cross disability. And that's that's something I had to make a choice on. And then on the third thing is that I want to basically create in the future a Center for Independent Living that's completely virtual. And I want NMD United to create that first virtual Center for Independent Living, because I think that one of the biggest barriers to our ability to advocate is transportation and being able to get out and get involved. And social media, Facebook, Twitter, blogging, all of that stuff is able to, we can do that from our home. And so I really want to utilize the online platform to get the message across. So that's kind of like that's kind of how I'm focusing my advocacy. I don't go to ADAPT meetings. It's not that I don't want to, but the meetings are all the way across town, and they're at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I work and I can't get to ADAPT. And so, it's very hard for me to get to a lot of events. So I feel like if I can host events here, that I'll be able to do more. So anyway, that's just what I was thinking about that, but I just wanted to say that. Heather, you want to ask your question?
Well, I kind of want to touch on what you had asked in the beginning of it. I think that as an advocate, or as advocates, we all are fighting for what we're most passionate about, and I think that the disability community is like a very, very fine untapped resource. It's just we we have so many beautiful and inspiring and interesting and outstanding people in our community, and we should have a voice in our society. And so I think that finding a way to unite us, like finding like very distinct issues in our society that we're fighting for and putting a voice to it, it is our greatest power. And I also agree with you that a virtual community for that would be a really good equal and accessible way to present that. And it's also that you know, there are so few people that don't use social media and don't use like any form of online learning, you know? I mean, the more we put out there, the more people are going to see it and going to hear our voices and stuff like that. So, but that being said, I don't think that we're united. I think that a lot of us are kind of confused about in what direction we need to be heard, or what issues need to get out there the most, what are most important to us, what are our values like, and how is our community defined. And I think that's something that we need to figure out as a community, as a whole in general. Like,
I agree with that. I have to say, like, I feel like, if you don't mind me saying, Emily, I really feel like to be a stronger community, we don't have to have the exact same ideas. You know, it's very good that, especially on Living with MD, a lot of us are very vocal and we can have debates on issues. But I really hope that at the end of the day, everyone agrees that we're all allies here and can agree at least on the bigger issues, because if we're divided on issues, it just gets it even harder for people who are not affected by disability to see us as a strong community, because they might meet different people with totally opposing views, when really at the end of the day, you know, we should just, I don't know, I really don't know, but we have to discuss exactly what we're divided on and why, and if maybe we can kind of agree to disagree on certain parts, but on the bigger issues agree on equality and trying to change what needs to be changed. And then to expand on that, I was going to say, because there's some people who are not on social media or on the internet, there's also a lot of people with disabilities who are not active advocates even for themselves. So I don't know if we have to think about recruiting at one point too. I know there have been a lot of efforts to recruit, you know, everyone possible who people can find to be on NMD United and Living with MD. But I still know people out there who are just not into it, and it would be nice if they would, you know, get encouraged and inspired to be involved.
I think that having a campaign to focus on is really helpful. Right now, getting people together to advocate is not specific. And I think if we have, hey, this quarter of the year, let's focus on A, and then we can recruit in those people who are fired up about that. And with regard to differences, a really interesting thing I saw happen, particularly in the 80s and 90s, is the disability community as a whole was at odds with the senior community. Now, we were using the same services. We were particularly talking about home care, you know, personal assistant services. And the state kept trying to impose mandatory fingerprinting and background checks before we would be allowed to hire anybody. And the disabled people said, hey, I'm okay with you guys getting background checks, but don't make it mandatory. You know, we had this and we still have this debate. Right now, we do not agree with the senior community about this, and we fought it for 10 years because we wanted the power to hire whoever we felt was qualified to work for us. And the senior community didn't want to give up the mandatory part of that. They wanted to make it mandatory because it made them feel safer. And so eventually the disabled community lost that battle, and now we have mandatory fingerprinting in California for people using Medicaid-funded home care, and it's turned out to be a real hassle. It's really hard to get people on payroll because everything's delayed by the same fingerprinting process. But I think having the very in-depth discussion and continuing to listen to each other and to not, and to not walk away. We didn't walk away from the senior community. In fact, we joined them in a lot of their battles that were maybe not quite on the mark with us, but finding the solidarity, finding the commonalities, and they jumped in and helped us with our battles. And we're finding the commonalities more than we are finding the differences. So it's exciting. But I think if there was an actual campaign, that we could get a lot more people involved. Because I don't think that's clear what it means to be involved in NMD United. Am I saying that right? NDM?
Neuromuscular Disabilities Unit.
NMD United. I think it's not clear what it means. And when you say advocate, people don't know what that means.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, this is like, I mean, we could do this for a million years. Like, we could sit here and we could get in telethon mode and we could do this for 24 hours straight. And I mean, and we probably wouldn't even scratch the surface of all that needs to be accomplished. But I think it's good that we're here and we're talking about it. I think it's good to, I can talk a little bit about what NMD United, TK can talk about that as well, what we're doing as a nonprofit for the folks in the neuromuscular disability community right now, what our hopes are for the future. But, you know, there's just so many things that we can do, and it's overwhelming. I got really disappointed because, oh God, who was it? Was it some disability, major disability governmental force? They were all proud of themselves, and I was a little frustrated because they, after fighting many battles, they won the ability to make pool lifts mandatory in all hotels. I don't know, who did that? I can't remember.
I think that was Mickle. I think.
Mickle.
Yeah.
But I remember I was just starting my advocacy stuff, like, you know, barely touching, you know, that's it. And I'm like, out of all the issues to focus on, mandatory hotel pool lifts? Come on. Like, I was just so frustrated by that. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, I think that, yeah, I do agree that we need to, like, I like the idea of doing almost like a quarterly issue, like something that we can all just attack. Like, you know, like everybody can agree that we all really want this, and we develop letters and we develop literature and we write about this and we blog about this and we just focus on one thing. And I think that that's really important. I also think, you know, a lot of people might say, well, why NMD United advocacy, and why not just incorporate anyone with a disability? And once again, I feel like we are a unique group in the sense that we have our needs. A lot of our needs are very, you know, we can all agree on certain things as we all go through it. And then on top of that, a lot of us are expert communicators because we've had to direct our own care. And so I think a lot of us are very great strong writers. I think our skill sets are very high. And so I think we have a lot of power. And so I just think we need to harness that power properly. And so, TK, do you want to talk a little bit briefly about what NMD United? Does anybody want to know what NMD United is doing right now? As far as like, are you all familiar? A lot of you are familiar with the Dear Juliana campaign, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then TK, do you want to talk a little bit about our kind of our future ideas that we're kind of talking about?
Well, I think we have a lot of ideas that are on the table, and I think that one thing that we really need to do over the next year or so is to kind of like narrow those ideas down a little bit, because we could be like a research group where we issue public policy papers about, let's say, something like community-based services, or the troubles that you have to have in maintaining eligibility for Medicaid. So you can have a whole series of white papers, if you will. That's one way to go. Another way to go is to talk about just sort of this continuing evolution of the peer model, and just supporting people in like just little tricks of the trade. And so that could be lots of different ways of just having either local meetups and so forth. I think Tabby's questions about how do I get involved at the grassroots level and just get involved in making change. We could have a series of lectures and conversations about just the real nuts and bolts of putting together basic disability rights community organizing. So I think we can do lots of things, but I think we need to kind of like focus on 2 or 3 things and do those well over the next year.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Since I've been around, the one thing that I've seen everybody get united on is the Dear Juliana letters. Would it be beneficial to pick a topic like that everybody could get on board for, and kind of go after, like you're talking about, whether it's quarterly or monthly, or maybe 2 issues at the same time? There seems to be power in numbers, and when everybody, not everybody's going to agree on anything, but when you do get everybody together, it does seem to have an impact, to the point where other groups with parents are taking notice, and whether they like it or not, they're taking notice. But people are noticing what's going on with that.
Well, I'm pleased that you've seen that happen in your personal view. I feel like Dear Juliana is an awareness campaign that is showing us as ordinary people, not inspirational porn people, just ordinary people living lives and excelling in a lot of ways. Maybe not like in the way, maybe just ordinary, extraordinary kind of ways, I feel like that this campaign is a lot bigger than just letters to children. I think I could go on all day about it, but I'm very, 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 very excited about where it's leading. Did Terry go away? Oh, but Laura, Heather, you guys have been exceptionally helpful with this whole project. And I feel like it's gonna get deeper and deeper, and it's gonna focus on the idea of medical neglect and the idea that people with neuromuscular disabilities do not have an automatic death sentence. And that's a new thing for people. They're not used to learning that. They're not used to seeing us grow up and become adults. And it's really eye-opening and exciting. And so yeah, that's a campaign that I think is an advocacy project that I'm really proud of right now. Just to go around the room, I know there's a million topics and there's all kinds of things, but if you were to pick like one thing that you think would be something that we should focus on as a community, what would be your one thing?
I have mine.
What's yours?
I would like to disassociate healthcare from earnings. I want to make it so that because you work or because you own a house or you have rental property, that you're not suddenly disqualified from the healthcare aspect of the benefits. I don't want my healthcare to be means tested.
Yeah.
That would eliminate the marriage penalty problem. That would eliminate a lot of problems. Disconnect appropriate healthcare from employment.
All right,
Yeah, I think that's. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. What do you want to say?
I was going to say what that ties into, like with the Disability Integration Act, making, community-based care a civil right. That would mean that private insurance would have to cover your personal care attendants. So that's why I think the Disability Integration Act is huge. That's something that ADAPT and Nickel are really strong advocates for right now. And I think, as a community at large, we need to, that's a really good issue to focus on. And telling senators, it's saving money, because putting someone in a nursing home is so much more expensive than them living in the community. And so that's a way to get, both political parties, talking about it, but the biggest issue, nursing homes are a huge special interest group with money. We see that a lot in Texas. We know that Greg Abbott, kind of has ties with those nursing homes, and it's probably the same in other states as well. So that's I posted a link on the invite. If you go to ADAPT's page, they have information and papers to present on the Disability Integration Act. They're trying to get that introduced, in Congress. But of course, right now they're trying to figure out, are we going to shut down for the year? So that'll probably be an issue to really hit hard next year.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, I know you're in Canada, and so I'm just wondering, is your care means tested in Canada?
Pardon?
Is your personal care means tested in Canada?
Kind of. Regularly there's just like your basic, you get government hours. I think when I turned 18, they gave 60 hours a month was my baseline. And then once I went to university, because I was living independently, they bumped it up to 90, which still is not, it's like 3 hours a day, not much at all. And then they have, in different provinces is different, kind of like I think states are, where it's different kind of all the way across. So in Ontario, where I am, they have a consumer directed program, but when I joined, it was a 3-year wait list. And so I was waiting for that. And then when you get that, they do a full assessment as to how long it takes you to do everything, what all you need. So I guess that would probably be considered.
So is your income at all considered when you get care? Like, could you make an unlimited amount of money and still get the same amount of care?
Sort of, not really.
And the reason I asked
it's very
this,
touchy and it's very confusing.
Right. Well, and the reason I asked this is because, I want our folks from other countries to feel like they can contribute to this if we were to pick this as an issue. And I think that it could be a good, in developing our literature, that we could possibly copy change it to apply to other government situations where this is so I just don't want you to feel like, oh God, I'm here with a bunch of Americans and I don't really care.
I just feel like we kind of I feel like our income affects us less for care wise than it does you in America, but our accessibility is much worse, in my opinion.
I would be very curious to get some of your policies on that.
We have none.
Well, you probably have something, but there's got to be some way
minimal.
to figure that out. But it'd be interesting also to look at other countries and how they structure stuff like that. I'm very curious about reading. What was it, Laura, that you mentioned? The community disability. What is it? The thing that you're saying that they're going to try to push?
The Disability Integration Act.
And, all right, so is that the same thing you've talked about, TK? The community integrate, or has it been renamed?
Yeah, to be called that. Senator Harkin had his own version of the law, and then that didn't get through Congress, and so they've reintroduced it with a different name and some more of a stronger law.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering if, so curious, what does everybody else think about that issue? To separate, income and healthcare, to draw a line where that doesn't tie anymore. Thoughts?
I think it's very important. I mean, I'm not working right now, but if I get out of school, when I get out of school, I'm not going to be able to really do anything because, I can't risk losing Medicaid stuff.
What about you, Heather?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's imperative. I mean, when I get a job after I graduate, I'm going to be making above the income that I need to be on, so Medicaid. And Medicaid's the only insurance that's really going to help me to the extent that I need help. So
it's really on a state level, right? Because Medicaid's on a state level. Because I think New York and DC are not really with Medicaid. I could be wrong.
It's sort of a state issue, but with Medicaid, there's two different portions. You have the federally mandated programs, where it's the same in every state, even though it's implemented at the state level. The minimum requirements that every state must provide. For example, every child on Medicaid has to have dental care. That's not true for every adult on Medicaid, and the state can choose whether or not to provide dental care to an adult. So what we need to do is really cut through this state-by-state advocacy bullshit, excuse my French, but that's what we've been doing for the last 15 years, and it's very exhausting. But what we need to do is make this law so it's mandatory in every state, in the mandatory portion of the Medicaid program.
Right, a good proportion, because it's different, the taxes are different in states. I agree with that.
Peg, what are your thoughts? Is Peg still here? Well,
yes, I'm here. I was on mute. Sorry. My thoughts are that this would be the equivalent of the single payer system that Bernie Sanders is advocating, and I think it's the only way for us to be truly liberated. That's what's holding us down. There are more PhDs receiving Medicaid than anything. We can't get jobs. People can't get jobs because, as someone mentioned, they can't afford to work, because if they lose Medicaid, they would lose all their support. So I think this is an excellent issue to get behind.
So here we are, all of us. What is, and we're going to finish up for tonight because it's almost 9, and we can have more meetings about this. But, or it's almost 9 Central, but it's almost 10 in East, and what are you, 7? Almost 7 in California? So anyway, but so let's just see a show of hands. If we have
Hey, that's ableist. I can't pick up my hands.
No, dude, there's a little thing that you click that shows your hand. You can raise your hand in Zoom. Do you know how to do it?
No.
All right, well, let me see. There's a way to do it.
Just tell me.
Oh, yeah, there you go. You go under participants, and you click, and then you go raise hand.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so if this is an issue that we think we should focus on and talk about some strategies for promoting this, raise your hand.
Well, my hands raise them. I'm still figuring out how to jump.
You go under participants on the bottom.
Yeah, it doesn't say my, I can see everyone else's, but not mine.
At the very bottom, do you see lower hand, raise hand? No? No?
Well,
Right.
I'm not even on a website. I'm just
All
doing
right.
my
Oh,
phone
yeah,
right now.
yeah, we got you on that, Peg. I understand.
I think the host can't raise their hand.
Yeah, I don't think I can.
All right, well,
I can do
But-
that though.
all right. Well, anyway, I think it's looking like this is something that we should focus on. How do you guys feel about that? Does anybody protest that idea? I think it's a commonality. I think it's something that it makes a lot of sense, and it's something that we should start early on. So before we leave tonight, and we'll maybe we can talk about when we want to set another meeting. And if you're interested in coming into that meeting, what is maybe? I think one thing I'd like is to read more about this. So Laura, would you mind posting on the event page some links to this Disability Integration Act? Is that something that you could do for us?
Yeah, I already posted it on there.
Yay, thank you. Okay. So I'm gonna definitely read up more on that. I mean, I kind of know what it is, but is it detailed? I mean, is there actual? Oh.
Yeah, it's really detailed. They have a lot of links within that website as well. And if you have any questions, let me know and I can get you in contact with the people like Stephanie Woodward of the Center for Disability Rights, New York. She actually helped write the law. So I can help you get in contact with her too.
Oh, that's cool. Great.
And I wanted to speak to something that Brooklyn said earlier, and what you were saying, Emily. I think this is a really good opportunity to come up with a larger position paper for people in other countries. For example, in Canada, everybody I know there has way less hours, and they can't even imagine moving out of their parents' home or down the street too far, or they can't move away from their family support network, and it's outrageous. I mean, I get 283 hours a month just right off the top, and then I applied for additional hours and get about 500 hours a month. I mean, it's so different here from there. So a general position paper, making it more accessible for people in different countries as well, will be a great plan.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're looking at your hours, but in Texas, that's unheard of. So I mean, our states are like different countries, and if Texas had it their way, they would be seceding from the state, probably from the country, and starting their own with Ted Cruz as president.
And this is Rachel, but I just want to say, just as an example, when I was in Ohio, I received 24/7 actual nursing care. It had to be an LPN or an RN, which I don't agree with, but that's another story. But it was 24/7 care. And then overnight, I moved to Texas, and suddenly I get 42 hours a week. So I'm not sure how that, I magically improved overnight. I'm just curious how that happened. So I would like to be informed about that.
That's like, in Kansas, I get 16 hours a day nursing. I want to move to another state, but I, probably want to get the same. It's just.
Well, and I also think it's very interesting how they add up time in Texas. They have set amounts of time for you to go to the bathroom. You get 20 minutes a day to go to the bathroom max. They're not looking at your individual situation. They're looking at kind of general idea of how long it takes for you to go to the bathroom. And, and part of that, there's the policy side, writing the laws and petition, going into the political side of things and getting congressional people to learn. But there's also just the general awareness that people have no idea what that looks like. And so, when I got my care hours evaluated this year, I took a picture of my formula sheet and I posted it on Facebook. And I said, hey, I've got 20 minutes a day to go to the bathroom. How do you like that, everybody? And it got shared, and people started going, what do you mean you only get 20 minutes to go to the bathroom? people just have no idea how this breaks down. Like they don't understand what we go through and how it all factors in. And so there's like that greater awareness of, you know, people just like kind of having these aha light bulb going off moments where they're like, this is absolutely sickening. It's so unfair. And they don't know it. They just don't know. And so we need to start becoming like, that's a small thing of activism that we can do, is just take a picture of our paperwork, take a picture of our formulas, you know what I mean? And write about our specific care life.
How
you
it
know?
affects us, yeah.
I think it really helps. I really do. So Peg, is that you in video? Did you join us in video world?
Figured it out. Sorry. Yeah. I think I'm on both. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's
I probably should hang up on the phone, but
no,
whatever.
It's great to see you. It's really, really great to meet you.
Yeah, I recognize your face. I met you in Houston at the Miss Wiltshire, Texas conference.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you were one of the guest speakers. It was
Yes, that's right.
informative.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, if this is so, is anybody? Would you guys all be open to maybe meeting again and discussing more about some ways that we can start making things happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Good.
I think there may be some information that we can get from the single payer movement that might help too. That would be through Healthcare Now or Physicians for National Health Plan. They've got a lot of this information that's very relevant to separating health care from work status. But the other agenda item here too is getting health insurance companies out of the picture because they limit us too.
Right, and I think that it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of skill set in this group that, you know, of healthcare. Like, you know, TK working with his CDS agency. You know, you and Rachel working in healthcare. I mean, it's just kind of cool. I'm excited about it. I think that we should all probably do some research and reading on the topic, and then maybe meet again on a Tuesday night next month and see what we can bring to the table as far as our research goes. Does that sound fair enough? Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Another option also is to consider maybe doing some kind of a Dear Juliana spinoff where we write letters about our healthcare situation, our personal care attendant stories.
Yeah, and I don't know if people realize, but that's part of how the ADA was passed. People in the 90s, we did journals. We wrote, I got up, and someone had to carry me down my front steps. And I walked to the bus station. I'm in the bus stop 3 blocks down my house. 2 blocks had no curb cuts, so I had to walk in the street. And I waited at the bus, and 3 buses drove by. And we all wrote these journals all through the later half of the 90s. I'm sorry, the 80s. Jeez, I feel really old now. But in the latter half of the 80s, we wrote these journals, and we sent them to our federal representatives so that they could see these things. These were real stories, and it was very, very effective because they had no idea every day, every barrier that we faced.
I think that we could probably come up with some really creative ideas to publish our stories. And I think that we could do that, you know, I think it would make a big difference. So we'll just have to kind of brainstorm, come up with some ideas as far as that goes, maybe a way that we could personally start to put this together, you know, and I'm sure NMD United would be totally on board with like helping with you know, hosting whatever we do. Like, I don't know, we start a blog or something along those lines, like we can do that, no problem. So, and the nice thing about it is NMD United is a nonprofit, so We're set up for tax deductions. We're set up for grants. We're set up for all that kind of stuff. So we can do a lot, we can do a lot of stuff. Ah, Alana just left. All right, well, thanks, guys. I'm gonna also. Huh?
I gotta go. I'm really exhausted.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think we're about done. How's everybody doing?
All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll post the meeting for next month, and hopefully we'll see a lot of you there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.